Jungle.
Line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Art.
Yes.
Hi. I don't have a whole lot of time.
Well, look, let's begin by finding out whether you're using this line properly or not.
Area 51.
Yeah, that's right. Were you an employee or are you now?
A former employee.
Former employee.
I was let go on a medical discharge about a week ago, and I've kind of been running across the country. Oh man, I don't know where to start. They're gonna they'll triangulate on this position really soon.
So you can't spend a lot of time on the phone. So give us something quick.
Okay. Okay. What we're thinking of as aliens are they're extra-dimensional beings that an earlier precursor of the space program made contact with. They are not what they claim to be. They have infiltrated a lot of aspects of the military establishment, particularly the Area 51. The disasters that are coming, the military, I'm sorry, the government knows about them, and there's a lot of safe areas in this world that they could begin moving the population to now, Art.
But they're not doing anything.
They are not. They want the major population centers wiped out so that the few that are left will be more easily controllable.
Discharge.
I started getting...
In some way, something knocked us off the air, and we're on a backup system now.
It's the government, or...
I don't know.
It has to be something, though.
Well, did you hear... Now, you tell me, because you were listening.
That was awful strange.
There was a really weird guy on the air when it went off?
Yeah. Real weird out.
Like, going... Sort of sounding paranoid, schizophrenic?
Like crying and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how far into the conversation was it when it went off?
Just a couple, about 15, 20 seconds, I'd say.
Oh, you guys you really missed a call then, and I've got a feeling somebody didn't want you to hear it.
Yeah. Because it was really strange. All of a sudden, I'm hearing Mark Furman, and
That's right. Well, the network, of course, went immediately to a backup tape while we tried to figure out what blew up here. So that's what you heard happen. And then we're now on a backup link system to be on the air at all right now. So, well, I'm telling you.
Am I on the air right now?
You're on the air right now. Well, you better be, yes.
And,
where are you, by the way?
I'm in Michigan.
Michigan.
Yeah, I called the other night, and, I wanted to ask two things.
Real quick.
Well, I wanted to say one thing, and I wanted to ask another.
Real quick.
I wanted to ask if you could play that, remote viewing, one when you were while you go to Egypt.
Yes.
And also, I wanted to know, all this stuff about, like, Area 51, if it's, like, the government's trying to put it out there like that, so, like, some other place isn't being watched as much.
In other words, it's a big decoy. I see what you're saying here, and apparently we'll be back after the news, I think. Sandy Beach here, invited. We lost all transmit capability On this end, here in Nevada, the transmitter went belly up suddenly for some unknown reason. I've never seen it do this in all the years that we've been on the air. I have never seen the transmitter in this way. Simply fail, a massively fail, like a massive heart attack. And so we went to a backup system.
No, Matiu, ja veus si he sentit soroll. Des de fa rato que sentit soroll. Que sí, collons, que sí. Hòstia. Escolta. Ho sents o no? Cago en Déu! Va, corre, allò, tia, va!
One devilish controversy, a statue being unveiled right here in Detroit.
But the group putting on this date with the devil.
Religious leaders have fought to keep this 9-foot, 1-ton symbol of Satan from setting foot in Detroit. They've prayed, they've protested.
Gathered together to stand as one unified voice against this demonic spirit.
But the devilish statue is still on its way, now planned to be unveiled this Saturday at an undisclosed location somewhere in Detroit. The event is being put on by the Satanic Temple, a group that first wanted to unveil the statue at Burt's Warehouse in Detroit. But when patrons started to complain, Burt's backed out, and event planners looked for a new venue. On its website, the temple insists it's not a religious group and believes in the pursuit of knowledge and freedom of will. That includes, they say, the freedom to offend. And the statue is more than offensive to many. It was created in response to a monument of the 10 Commandments placed here on the grounds of the state courthouse in Oklahoma City. Ultimately, the temple says that's where they want to place their 9-foot statue permanently. But first comes Saturday night's unveiling, and if you're looking to get in some FaceTime with Satan, the temple would love to have you. The party promises dancing and music starting at 8 p.m. Tickets start at $25. But if you'd like to get your picture taken on the satanic symbol's lap, that will cost $50 more. Turns out the freedom to offend isn't very free at all.
Cineva care le-a primit de bunăvoie, deci nesilit de nimeni, știind ce înseamnă, noi ca duhovnici ce facem?
Cu ele.
V-am spus, acela care n-a știut ce va scrie în pașaport, pe acela să-l iertați, iar pe cel care știe precis că el e pădare de Hristos, să nu-l iertați.
Părinte, și cine ia, de exemplu, permisul sau actul permisul, de exemplu, de conducere, dacă e preot, își pierde harul preoției. Deci, a luat permisul și slujește în continuare. Mai are harul preoției.
Știți asta ca și mai bine ca mine chiar că credincioșii îl văd pe el că slujește. Iar Dumnezeu știe că slujește altcineva în locul lui. El e văzut numai de trupul, că e cu trupul acolo.
Și noi nu putem sluji cu el.
Dar slujba o săvârșește
Îngerii.
Dumnezeu.
Însuși Dumnezeu. Și putem sluji împreună cu ei, care au acte.
Nu. Nu vă sfătuiesc să slujiți cu ei. Sau, dacă vreți să-l salvați, după 1-2 încercări, poate...
Da. Ferește-te!
Da. Dacă nu ascultă, nu se pui biserici, n-ascultă nici biserici, la tine să cotiți ca un păgân și vameș.
Da. Deci, practic, cade în erezie, cum ar veni. Practic. chiar și permisul, deși permisul, că
Da.
mulți părinți, zic, preacuvioase părinte, zic mulți părinți,
Preacuvioase.
cu viață, zic,
Și bucură-te că și curios. Da.
părinte Adrian,
Așa, da.
părinte Adrian, zic unii părinți că problema e numai actele biometrice, iar permisul, întrucât nu-i biometric, nu-i nicio problemă.
Neadevărat. Neadevărat.
Are cod de bare?
Nu. După am spus, după ce atrageți atenția și nu ascultă, o să pui.
Bisericii,
Deci,
sobor, sinodului, cum ar veni, soborului bisericii.
The Federal Reserve has never been audited. Men who have tried to ask for an audit of the Federal Reserve have suddenly disappeared. There's things that happen to them. Harry Reisner, a man who I spoke with in Seattle, made a statement on his program about it was time we had an audit of the Federal Reserve. 2 weeks later, he was dead. Flight 007, a congressman that was on that, had been pounding for an audit of the Federal Reserve System, and he was gone. It's pretty easy to mistake a Boeing 747 for a fighter aircraft, isn't it? That's what they shot down. They thought they shot down an intruding fighter, and it was a 747. Korean Airlines Flight 007. Folks, I want to tell you something. There is a conspiracy. You can believe it, you can bank on it. There is a conspiracy in this country to bring us to a one-world government. Let me tell you a little bit about one of the aspects of that conspiracy, and then I'm going to close. I'm not able to share everything tonight. We have tapes and literature out there, and we have the one-world government tape, and so you're welcome to take that. That's right. I'm about out of time. I on the tape, and you'll be able to hear them. I want to talk about a group called the Trilateral Commission because I think it affects each and every one of you. 1973, David Rockefeller, who headed the Trilateral, who formed the Trilateral Commission, called upon 5 of his Arab buddies, who were all Masons, and let's boycott the oil to the United States. At the same time, they capped the wells in Louisiana. They capped wells in California here. They shut them down. They shut down any North Shore crude that was coming out. And all of you found yourself at gas lines, 5 gallons at a time every other day. And it was predicted what you were going to do. They knew what you were going to do. You turned around then and started buying toys. You bought Toyotas, Datsuns, all kinds of Japanese cars. Japan turned into an industrial giant overnight. It had so much money that much of that money ended up in Europe, coming back into the United States, purchasing companies like Signetics, like a large percentage of General Electric and other companies. Many of my patents were moved to France and to other countries because of this. Technology moved out of the country. You can go over to Silicon Valley and you can find weeds growing up through parking lots in some of the buildings that are over there. The technology moved because they had the money to buy it. The largest landowners in the state of California and in Washington and Oregon are foreign landowners owning great conglomerates of land. Many things have gone on in the banking system to create these kind of things. Banking regulations have changed. Farmers who had good loans all of a sudden lost their farms because the banking regulations had changed. And these things ended up into corporate farms and conglomerates and foreign owned. You can't hardly go to a golf course in California here, but what it isn't owned, foreign owned. Am I against foreign ownership? No, I'm just telling you. Folks, I'm a thermometer, not a rheostat. You can't turn me up or down. I'm just telling you what is. And what happened out of that thing with the Trilateral Commission was that they turned Japan into an industrial giant. We are a debtor nation to Japan today. We owe Japan more money than we can pay. And it happened because of that. The trade deficits go on and on and on. There have been no trade restrictions put against Japan, and you'll see every time it comes up, it fizzles. And the reason it does is because the government's not in control of what's going on there. I'm going to tell you something else, and this may come as a shock to you. This last election we had, Clinton and Gore were at a Bilderberger meeting in Biden, and they 5 months before the election. I've got documentation and pictures of them coming out of the building. David Rockefeller was with them, and he said he thanked the news media for keeping the secret of the Bilderbergers. The election was over, folks, at that point. The election was over. Bush did not put up a fight.
He was very passive in all of the debates. He did not put up a fight. There was a concern that even at that there was momentum building, so H. Ross Perot, who is a CFR member, was brought back in at the last moment to pull Bush votes. Now these are conspiracies, folks, that are documented, and they happened. You look at the popular vote and how close it was, and if Perot hadn't come back in, it would have been a different story. A lot of people thought that Bush was going to win, but Clinton and Gore had been set up. The commander-in-chief had been removed and a new commander-in-chief put in. It's time we stop fooling around. There is no place that you can hide. The surveillance satellites will find you wherever you go. We are truly moving to a cashless society where you will not be able to buy or sell without the mark.
You're listening to the sounds of PCRL, the People's Community Radio, Birmingham. Yo, peace. You're listening to the sounds of PCRL, the People's Community Radio, Birmingham. You know you got to fight, stand up for your rights.
Saying that there was approximately 2 million varieties of life on this planet. This was the calculation of the scientists.
2 million? No, 8 million. All right. You were saying the other day that all the species of life were mentioned in the Padma Purana. Yeah. All given account of.
But is it divided by country, or within one country there are many species?
You are taking up country, but Shastra takes of the planets. Not of the country. Your idea is very simple. Country. National. But Shastra is not. There is no such thing as national. They take the whole universe. They consider from that angle of view. One planet or universe, like, let's say last night the girl was astonished how this planet can be governed by one king. But it was being actually done. And the whole universe is being governed by Brahma, one person. So one must know how to govern. It's like we have got different divisions for different zones. Similarly, they're doing their duty nicely. All these planets are the different residential quarter, different level of. They're controlling the whole universe. In comparison to them, this human being is nothing. Very good chance of realizing God in the human form. Just like difference between Western countries and India. India has a very quick chance of realization of God. The atmosphere is so nice. So, this planet is good for God realization, and the best place is in India.
So, in this planet, everybody is meat eating. In this country, everybody is performing sinful activities.
It is decreasing. The more you are becoming sinful, the rain will decrease.
So it is decreasing now?
Yeah. And at the end, there will be no rain. This whole planet will be ablaze with fire. That is the beginning of destruction. There will be scarcity of rain. There will be scarcity of rain and scarcity of food grains. The best thing is, at night there must be heavy rain, and daytime there should be sunshine. Then the field will be very fertile. That is knowledge. But they have no knowledge. They simply want to enjoy. They do not care for death also. Simply sensual. This is called Dhanam life.
They say originally there was just a cell, and by adaptation, in some circumstances, one kind would live and another would die. So all these varieties adapted to different conditions.
Who adapted?
Well, they just
managed?
Accidentally.
That is nonsense. Nothing happens accidentally. That is nonsense. There must be some arrangement. What is happening is accidental.
Well, they say
why you are taking care of the trees? So many things. Nothing is done accidentally. You do not see the cause. If accident is there, let accident come and I'll become rich man. Why they try? Why they go to the college? Let accidentally become MA, PhD. This is all rascal time.
We are wondering what is happening to the world. Everything is changing.
The very idea of human being some sort of natural concept is really going to change.
Our bodies will be so high-tech, we won't be able to really distinguish between what's natural and what's artificial.
Inside our own heads is the most complex arrangement of matter in the known universe.
You might ask yourself, can we get to be superhumans?
The original Industrial Revolution was driven by the discovery that you could use steam engines to do all kinds of interesting things.
But that was followed by additional revolutions for electricity and computers and communications technology. We're now in the early stages of the fourth Industrial Revolution, which is bringing together digital, physical, and biological systems.
One of the features of this fourth Industrial Revolution is that it doesn't change what we are doing, but it changes us.
With the ability to visualize brain activity, for example, through a simple consumer-based EEG device, it gives us access to ourselves in ways that we've never before thought possible. It unlocks the black box that is the brain and enables us to really, truly be able to realize an identity that is aspirational.
There's now a scientific foundation for the effects of mindfulness on the brain, on the genome, on biological aging. And when the human mind does know itself, then you get the potential for a new renaissance that restructures itself in terms of our relationship to life, our relationship to the planet, our relationship to work.
We need a different economic model. And by that I don't mean capitalism versus communism. What I'm talking about is a shift in the system along the lines of the two big changes that happened in the 20th century, Keynesianism, with a much greater focus on health and education and the role of government working with business, and then a reaction against that in late century to neoliberalism, where the focus was on free markets, freedom of the individual, and getting governments out of the way. We need a shift to a new system that will allow us to meet the basic needs of every human on the planet, that will live within planetary means, that will be fairer, and that will be focused as its key goal, not on growth per se, but on maximizing human well-being. And history tells us that a value shift is triggered by creation of a new story about how we want to live.
I see the circular economy as something which fits very closely with mankind's goal to be innovative and creative and to always progress. We can use asset tracking, we can use IT, we can use 3D printing to enable this different economic model to recover materials, feed them back into the economy, and really to decouple growth from the resource constraints we have.
The reason we live in cities is not different today than it was 10,000 years ago. Even if we have got networks connecting us, we still want to have places where we meet in person. So this means the place where we work and the place where we live are much closer to each other, a city where we don't need to have big supply chains in order to produce things, where many things can be sourced locally thanks to 3D printing and robotics. So if we're able to do something to transform cities, to make them more efficient, then the impact can be huge.
Think about the prospect of getting rid of plastics. We must not only be inspired or informed by nature, but actually use natural organisms with which to design products and building parts. Only instead of varying material properties, we're varying biological functionality.
Design is critical today because it's the first signal of human intention. So the question of adding quality to quantity, it isn't a matter of simply circulating things that are potentially toxic. It's circulating things that are safe and healthy for all generations. So the goal is no longer, I want to be less bad, less monotonous, less unsafe, less unjust. It's really about a diverse, safe, healthy, and just world with clean air, clean water, clean soil, clean energy.
Together we are fighting to preserve our fragile climate from irreversible damage and devastation of unthinkable proportions.
If we think about the original Industrial Revolution, it was an energy revolution. I like to think of it as a kind of bookending of a period in human history during which we used fossil fuels, and it worked very well for us for a long time. But now we have to bring that to an end. We have energy technologies that can power our civilization: solar, wind, biomass. So then the question is, well, how do we get grid integration? Maybe the wind is blowing in Denmark, the sun is shining in Germany, and now you can move that electricity through an integrated grid. You can supply energy to everyone who needs it, and you can supply energy at all times.
Walking around, you do see different stuff as far as like the body marriage line. They use a lot of things that help them lift up and move things to the car. You just sit there and, you know, program something, and it has its own set mind to go ahead and do everything. And then as humans, we just come in and take the extra step to help the technology.
It's not the cure-all for everything. There's definitely a lot of things where people perform the operation better, but certainly for the right applications, robotics are a huge improvement for the process.
The prediction of 5 million jobs lost by 2020 to technology is serious, but it's not the main question. Construction, manufacturing, services, public health and education, these industries will still exist. The main question is, what will be the future of work? How will we define work? How will we share the wealth?
From the viewpoint of the labor or jobs, now we really need new education or new training.
We're working with a World in Motion and First Robotics, trying to encourage students from 3rd grade all the way up through the end of high school. We had students make sailboats, and then we had them race them, and so they could see how quickly they could move. And they immediately went back and started to say, oh, I saw what happened, I'm going to go change this or that. And that was 3rd graders.
I just given a prize to a kid of 18 years old that has discovered something really very, very unique. Came up with how to get better productivity and better yields for seeds of corn. And so he basically came with the idea that if you would perforate these seeds, you would get more food. And you think about it and say, but he didn't go to university. So how does he get all that knowledge? And he told me, I mean, I've been watching YouTube since the age of 12, and I'm so interested that I've seen everything about it. I've read everything about it. The world is really open to learning. The thing is, how do you give the incentive to your kids to do that?
It's this ability of digital technology
to change outcomes, to truly empower people all over the world that can create a more equitable growth, because I think the world needs that.
Fourth industrial revolution has the potential to make inequalities visible and to make them less acceptable in the future, and hopefully to gather and garner political support to take the necessary decision to reduce the gap.
Humans have always been using tools, but because of the recent advances in technology, we're beginning to have machines that can augment us in all sorts of interesting ways.
I was the first person in the world to be able to voluntarily move my legs while stepping in a robot by exciting the nervous system using electrical stimulators directly onto the spine. We believe that a cure will be possible if enough of the right people have the will to fast-track a cure for paralysis.
We take two things from the patient. First, we take a three-dimensional X-ray and we extract the three-dimensional data out of that so we can make a perfectly shaped puzzle piece. And then we also take a sample of fat tissue from the patient so that we can extract the stem cells out of those. And we use those stem cells with this three-dimensional scaffold that we fabricate, and after 3 weeks we have a piece of living bone that's ready for implantation.
Being able to use genome editing to understand the genetic changes that lead to cancer, and technologies like drug delivery, getting molecules into particular types of cells. There's a lot of excitement about being able to move much more quickly on this disease.
One of the things that I think is so essential to free and open societies is freedom of thought. And up until now, the conversation we've been having is around freedom of speech. Once we can access people's thoughts and access people's emotion, we have to create a space that enables people to think freely, to think divergent thoughts, to think creative thoughts. And in a society where people fear having those thoughts, the likelihood of being able to enjoy progress is significantly diminished.
We need to take responsibility at every level of society, from the individual and the personal to the institutional to the global, to adapt to these technological challenges and changes which are redefining what it means to be human, what it means to work, what it means to be completely embedded in this world.
People always ask me if I'm an optimist or a pessimist. The technology exists, but how do we get it and implement it at the scale we need at a price that people around the world can afford?
Even though we have everyday problems we have to solve, we have to find a way to lay the foundations for the innovations of tomorrow.
And I look at the whole religious scene today, and all I see are the inventions and ministries of man and flesh. It's mostly powerless. It has no impact on the world. And I see more of the world coming into the church and impacting the church rather than the church impacting the world. I see the music taking over the house of God. I see entertainment taking over the house of God. An obsession with entertainment in God's house, a hatred of correction and a hatred of reproof. Nobody wants to hear it anymore. Whatever happened to anguish in the house of God? Whatever happened to anguish in the ministry? It's a word you don't hear in this pampered age. You don't hear it. Anguish means extreme pain and distress. The emotion so stirred that it becomes painful. Acute, deeply felt inner pain because of conditions about you, in you or around you. Anguish, deep pain, deep sorrow, agony of God's heart. We've held on to our religious rhetoric and our revival talk, but we've become so passive. All true passion is born out of anguish. All true passion for Christ comes out of a baptism of anguish. You search the scripture and you'll find that when God determined to recover a ruined situation, he would share his own anguish for what God saw happening to his church and to his people, and he would find a praying man, and he would take that man and literally baptize him in anguish. You find it in the book of Nehemiah. Jerusalem is in ruins. How is God going to deal with this? How is God going to restore the ruin? Now, folks, look at me. Nehemiah was not a preacher. He was a career man. This was a praying man. And God found a man who would not just have a flash of emotion, not just some great sudden burst of concern and then let it die. He said, no, I broke down and I wept and I mourned and I fasted. And then I began to pray night and day. Why didn't these other men, why didn't they have an answer? Why didn't God use them in restoration? Why didn't they have a word? Because there was no sign of anguish. No weeping. Not a word of prayer. It's all ruined. Does it matter to you today? Does it matter to you at all that God's spiritual Jerusalem, the church, is now married to the world? That there's such a coldness sweeping the land? Closer than that, does it matter about the Jerusalem that's in our own hearts? The sign of ruin that's slowly draining spiritual power and passion, blind to lukewarmness, blind to the mixture that's creeping in. That's all the devil wants to do, is get the fight out of you and kill it. So you won't labor in prayer anymore. You won't weep before God anymore. You can sit and watch television and your family go to hell. Let me ask you, is what I just said convicted you at all? There's a great difference between anguish and concern. Concern is something that begins to interest you. You take an interest in a project or a cause or a concern or a need. I'm going to tell you something I've learned over all my years, 50 years of preaching. If it is not born in anguish, if it has not been born by the Holy Spirit, where when you saw and heard of the ruin, that drove you to your knees, and all our projects, all our ministries, everything we do, where are the Sunday school teachers that weep over kids they know are not hearing and they're going to hell? You see, a true prayer life begins at the place of anguish, a place where lifetime decisions are made. You see, if you set your heart to pray, God's going to come and start sharing his heart with you. You see, you either walk away and go back to your passivity and say, I'm just going to be an ordinary Christian, and there's no such thing. Or your heart begins to cry out, oh God, your name is being blasphemed. The Holy Spirit's being mocked. The enemy is out trying to destroy the testimony of the Lord's faithfulness, and something has to be done. You can't go unchallenged. There's going to be no renewal, no revival, no awakening until we're willing to let him once again break us. Folks, it's getting late and it's getting serious. Please don't tell me you're concerned. Don't tell me that you want your unsaved loved one saved when you're spending hours in front of internet or television. Come on. Lord, there's some need to get this altar and confess, I am not what I was. I am not where I'm supposed to be. God, I don't have your heart or your burden. I wanted it easy. Didn't want to be happy. But Lord, true joy comes. True joy comes out of anguish. There's nothing of the flesh will give you joy. I don't care how much money, I don't care what kind of new house. There is absolutely nothing physical can give you joy. It's only what is accomplished by the Holy Spirit when you obey him and take on his heart. Build the walls around your family. Build the walls around your own heart. Make you strong and impregnable against the enemy.